The story begins in the rugged heart of Georgia, a country stretched between the Black Sea and the Caucasus Mountains. It was a land of wine and warriors, of songs sung in sorrow and in pride. In the small town of Kutaisi, stone churches rose from green hillsides, and families were bound together by duty, loyalty, and blood. In one such family lived Nikoloz Kapanadze, a man of iron will and ancient pride. He was a wealthy landowner who had risen from poverty with cunning and ruthlessness. Villagers respected him, though many feared him more. His voice carried like thunder, and his decisions were final, for in his household his word was law. Nikoloz had 3 children, but it was his eldest son, Nikoloz, who carried the heaviest burden. Nikoloz was 27, tall and broad-shouldered, his face marked by both the ruggedness of the mountains and the bitterness he carried within. To the villagers, he seemed destined to inherit his father's vast lands and vineyards, but beneath the surface, resentment grew like a slow fire. For Nikoloz, fatherhood was not love but command. His sons were soldiers in his private army, and his daughters were bargaining chips in the endless negotiations of marriage and influence. Nikoloz, in particular, felt more like a servant than a son. Every idea he proposed was dismissed, every act of defiance punished. Where others saw a proud patriarch, Nikoloz saw a tyrant. Dimitri's cruelty had many faces. With his booming voice, he humiliated his wife, Mariam, a gentle woman who endured his rage in silence. He mocked his younger son, Georgi, for his scholarly interests, calling him weak and unfit to lead, but the deepest wounds he inflicted were reserved for Nikoloz. "You are nothing without me," Dimitri often said, his eyes burning like cold embers. "You eat because I provide. You live because I allow. One day you will understand that obedience is the only virtue of a son." Each word carved into Nikoloz's heart like a blade. He dreamed of leaving Kutaisi, of escaping to Tbilisi, or even abroad, but Dimitri forbade it. "Your place is here. You are my blood, and my blood does not abandon the land." At night Nikoloz would sit by the river Rioni, staring at the flowing water, imagining it carrying him far away. Yet when he returned home, the heavy walls of the Kapanadze estate felt like a prison closing in on him. Mariam, his mother, noticed the shadows deepening in her son's eyes. She tried to soothe him, whispering words of patience. "Your father's heart is hard, my son, but time will soften him. Wait, endure." But Nikoloz's patience was running out. The turning point came with money. Dimitri had long been involved in secret dealings with powerful men, politicians, businessmen, even criminals who operated in the underworld of Tbilisi. He had debts, though he would never admit it aloud. To maintain his wealth and influence, he sold more of his vineyard harvest to foreign buyers, leaving little for the family or the workers who depended on him. Nikoloz confronted him one evening in the dining hall, the firelight flickering across their stern faces. "Father, the men are angry," Nikoloz said. "They have worked without pay for 3 months. They whisper of leaving. If they go, who will tend the vines?" Dimitri slammed his fist on the wooden table. "Do not speak to me about the men. They are peasants, replaceable. It is power that keeps them, not kindness. You are naive if you think loyalty comes from bread instead of fear." Nikoloz's jaw tightened. "Maybe you have ruled by fear too long." For a moment, silence fell. Georgi shifted uncomfortably. Mariam held her breath. Then Dimitri rose from his chair, towering over his son. "Careful, boy. Do not mistake the beard on your face for manhood. A son who defies his father is no son at all." That night, something broke inside Nikoloz. He could no longer dream of escape. The chains were too heavy. Instead, a darker thought took root, that if freedom would never be given, perhaps it must be taken.
Weeks passed, and the tension grew unbearable. Nikoloz began meeting secretly with an old childhood friend, Lavani, who had ties to the underground world of smugglers along the Black Sea. Lavani fed his anger, whispering of rebellion, of seizing power. "Your father is a relic," Lavani told him one night in a smoke-filled tavern. "He holds you like a dog on a chain, but you are stronger. If he were gone, all this would be yours. The land, the wealth, the respect. Why waste your life kneeling?" Nikoloz resisted at first. Murder was a line he dared not cross. But Lavani's words echoed the voice already growing inside him. Each insult from Dmitri, each cruel command watered the seed of betrayal until it grew into a poisonous tree. The final spark came when Dmitri announced his decision to bypass Nikoloz entirely and leave much of the estate to Georgi, the younger son. "Georgi has wisdom where you have rage," Dmitri declared. "He will guide this family forward. You, Nikoloz, will remain to manage the workers, if you can control your temper."
Humiliation burned hotter than fire. Nikoloz's fists clenched until his knuckles bled. His father had not only denied him freedom, but stripped him of honor. At that moment, the decision was made. The night was heavy with storm clouds. Rain lashed against the windows of the Kapanadze estate. Inside, Dmitri sat alone in his study, a glass of brandy in his hand, the fire crackling beside him. Nikoloz entered silently, his shadow long on the stone wall. In his hand he carried the hunting knife his father had once given him as a boy. Dmitri did not look up at first. "What is it now, Nikoloz? Come to whine again?" But when he finally met his son's eyes, he saw something he had never seen before. Not fear, not anger, but cold resolve. "Father," Nikoloz whispered, his voice steady, "tonight the chain breaks." Before Dmitri could rise, the blade flashed. The study filled with the sound of struggle, of grunts and gasps, of furniture crashing. Then silence. Dmitri Kapanadze, the man who ruled his family like a king, lay lifeless on the carpet, his blood soaking into the fibers. Nikoloz stood over him, chest heaving, the knife trembling in his hand. For the first time, he felt free, and yet utterly damned. Miriam's scream echoed through the halls when she discovered the body. Georgi fell to his knees, his face pale as snow. "It was me," Nikoloz confessed, his voice hoarse. "I did it. He left me no choice." But there is always a choice. The authorities came swiftly, summoned by the whispers of servants. In Georgia, patricide was not just a crime, it was a curse, a stain upon the soul. Nikoloz was dragged in chains through the streets of Kuchasi, the people staring in horror and disbelief. Lavani vanished, leaving no trace. At his trial, Nikoloz spoke no defense. He said simply, "I am my father's son, and like him, I chose power over mercy." The court condemned him to life in prison. Years passed. Behind iron bars, Nikoloz grew older, his body weary but his mind sharp with regret. He often thought of his mother's tears, of Georgi's broken eyes, of the vineyard he would never walk again. Freedom was his dream, but in seizing it through blood, he had only built himself another prison. Blood is the deepest bond, but when poisoned by pride and cruelty, it becomes the sharpest blade. A father who rules with fear breeds only rebellion. A son who answers cruelty with violence inherits only ruin. The price of freedom bought with betrayal is a life in chains. Dear listeners, this tale reminds us that betrayal, anger, and unchecked pride can tear even the strongest families apart.
In the end, power and revenge may bring a moment of freedom, but they always leave behind chains heavier than before. If you enjoyed the story and want to hear more dark tales of lies, betrayal, and hidden truths, don't forget to follow my channel, Polygon of Lies. Here, every story is more than just words. It's a mirror reflecting the shadows we try to hide. Subscribe, stay with us, and let's explore the secrets together.